So what brought you from Yale to USC?
Yeah, so I was a junior at Yale when COVID hit. So that was spring 2020. So that season got canceled for me. And then my senior year, thinking, things are going to be back to normal and a lot of teams competed. The Ivy League, a lot of the teams didn't compete, and Yale was one of those teams. So I actually graduated Yale only having competed 2 seasons. And I thought to myself, I've worked so hard in the sport. I came to college to compete 4 seasons. And even those 4 seasons are so fleeting. I wanted to finish it out the way that, I set out to in the first place. And in the Ivy League, you can't compete as a graduate student. So I thought this is a great opportunity for me to continue my education, get a master's, and continue my rowing career elsewhere. And USC ended up being the perfect place for me.
Man, Jenna, that's a very interesting Yale. I mean, tell us about Yale a little bit. I'd like to learn about Yale. Like, what was going to class like?
That wasn't on your list of schools coming out of high school?
No, I didn't. They didn't recruit me to the Yale. No,
tackle.
What was the class? What was the class experience at Yale?
The academics?
Yes.
In my experience, the academics were pretty rigorous, but also manageable. I think, they let you in because they think that you can handle it. And even when it gets overwhelming, they have so many resources for you to succeed. And you're surrounded by such bright minds that, there's just so many people to bounce ideas off of. And I had such a positive experience there. I'm so grateful for my time there. And I think I was a very unique person to be able to combine elite athletics with really good academics, honestly. And yeah, I just love my time there. And while it was intense, it was just so positive. And I have so many wonderful friends and memories and experiences from there.
I remember when I was here, a lot of our women rowers were recruited, they were athletic in a different sport, and then recruited to be transition into rowing. Did you always grow up with rowing, or did you fall in that bucket of, hey, I was a great soccer player and then I shifted over to rowing later on?
Yeah, really good question. I was a soccer player. And then I
didn't know that.
And then when I was 13, I tore my ACL. And my physical therapist, you're in a year of physical therapy with a torn ACL. She had rowed for Ohio State, which is a really big powerhouse rowing program. And she was like, oh, you're tall and pretty strong. You should just try rowing to sort of get muscle back in your leg. And maybe you can go back to soccer if you want to. And I ended up falling in love with the sport when I was a freshman in high school and got recruited from there. And here I am 10 years later.
And what's the training regimen like to become a great rower?
Rowing is a pretty intense sport. They call it a work sport, right? So it's very much fitness, endurance based. It's a combination of both cardio and strength. So anything you do is really helpful for rowing. You can run a lot, you can bike a lot, but it's always the most positive, transition to rowing to actually row. So, you use the rowing machines a lot, which we call ergs. And then in recent years, lifting has become very important in rowing. It's really a great supplemental to just the strength that we get through actually doing the sport.
Yeah.
And so that's sprinkled in 2 to 3 days a week in most programs.
Sean, you ever hit the erg?
I can only go for about 2 minutes and then I just quit, because I can do Stairmaster for 30 minutes and I can do all these things for 30 minutes, but that row machine, I stay away from that. Talk about how hard it is to just the endurance it takes to keep rowing. I can't fail to mention that is very hard to do. The endurance it takes. To me, it seems ridiculous.
How long are you continuously doing it for?
I mean, it's hard for me to answer to address that.
Okay, good. I feel better.
I've been doing it for 10 years and it's still hard for me. I would say in a given session, anywhere from 90 minutes to 2.5 hours.
And it's just full body, right? Legs,
it's full body.
Back, and
everything. Even sometimes I find myself clenching my jaw when I'm rowing. It's really is. To me, it takes everything. Yeah. But something that takes so much is also the most rewarding. So
I'm obviously so naive here, but how are you activating the legs? I feel like it's all just back. No?
That's a good way to get injured, actually.
So
basically,
that's why it hurts. No.
In the boat, your feet are strapped in and they are static. Your feet don't move, but the seat that you sit on moves. And so you bring yourself up and your knees are bent, and then you have your body over your legs, and you use yourself almost as a lever. And so the legs are 80% of the sport, and then you just really finish the stroke with the core, the back, the arms. But you want to have really nice, strong legs for rowing. That's how you're going to be successful.
And you said weightlifting is a new development in the sport. What did something change there, or is that just how did that evolve in rowing?
Yeah, really good question. I guess in my experience, when I was getting recruited to collegiate rowing 6 years ago, a lot of the programs that I was talking to had just started like readopting weights. Like they had done away with it for a while. They thought maybe it's not the most important thing. And then the teams that had continued doing weights kind of found themselves being more successful. And so it really became like emergent in the sport. And I would be surprised if there's a program out there that doesn't lift now.
And we talk so much in all sports about chemistry, but it seems so much more important in rowing because literally what you do to do it well, you have to do it in unison. How much of that is developed in the boat? How much of it is out of the boat? What is that relationship with your teammates like?
Yeah, I think it's multifaceted. I think a lot of it happens in the boat. Like it's a very technical sport, and there's a reason that we practice so much and we have to be so focused during practice. It's like 8 people trying to hit a golf ball at the same exact time and get it in the same hole. It's you have to strike the water at the same time. You have to finish the stroke at the same time, and everyone's bodies have to be at the same angle. And so a lot of that does happen in the boat. But then outside of that, we do a lot of tech work, even just on the machines, where you're not affected by people in the boat doing things wrong or doing things differently. Then you can just kind of like focus on yourself. And then also like team culture is so important in rowing. I always say like the most successful teams have the most trust. Just between the girls in the boat, you really have to trust that the people in front of you, the people behind you are doing everything that they can to get you to the finish line as fast as possible. And a lot of that is built outside of the boat and outside of practice. It's, spending time getting dinner with your teammates after like a hard practice or after a good practice, and spending time, supporting your teammates in their other extracurricular activities if they do any, things like that. So just team culture is so, so important as well.
You have to be a morning person.
Yes. Definitely.
What time's the alarm clock go off in the morning?
For me, 5:25. Our bus is at 6 days a week. So whatever that means for you to wake up.
Up and at 'em.
Dang, I didn't get to say regatta. I wanted to say regatta so bad.
They just finished their first regatta this week.
How was that regatta?
And then they have a duel coming up against Stanford.
Yes.
Yes. So we just got back from Head of the Charles today, actually.
Oh.
Which is a really big race that happens, a really big regatta that happens in Boston on the Charles River. It's like huge, like several 100,000 spectators, thousands of athletes, anyone from high school to collegiate racing to masters events, which they're, beyond college. There's alumni boats. It's just like a huge festival and celebration of our sport.
Party.
It's a party. And, we get to compete too. We get to have, a party with our friends and compete as well. So, I think things went really positively there for us. Like we had really good momentum from what we did last year there. And I think it really is going to set us up well for the rest of the year.
Well, you sold us that rowing is very difficult and that you're impressive. You also convinced me never to do it. Yep. So I think too early, too much work.
Closed mindset
but
over
great for you. And congratulations coming over here. And thanks for joining us. A big season ahead for USC Women's Rowing. They're just getting started, as I mentioned. Their first duel's coming up against Stanford. Head down to the port. It's a really cool deal. We always beat UCLA, so go watch them beat the Bruins later on this season. Hopefully keep that run going. And thank you for joining.